excellent, no longer quite good enough. Leader Fan Radio Network.
Good luck.
And KFAN. That's KFAN.com. 2 minutes and 14 seconds past 3 o'clock Central Daylight Time. We welcome you back to a Monday extravaganza. It's a very special edition of the Afternoon Aardvark, hosted by the A-Hole in the afternoon, and two-time state high school tennis champion Justin Gard, who I believe many people think has outlived or lived down, maybe that's a better way to put it, his Edina roots. Been used against you a lot over the years,
sure.
But I think maybe you've risen above it now. I'm not sure.
I've overcome it.
Did we ever find the Edina story sounder?
No, never found it. I don't know where it is.
Very disappointing, but
I'm surprised it didn't make the transition because I'm looking at page A.
Yeah, should have made it.
When we had everything in alphabetical order, and I've got Dr. Dan's inbox going right into the Enough Said music.
Oh, wow.
Where Edina's story should be, and it's just not there.
Dang. Well,
I don't know. So I don't know what we did with it.
You know what? I bet you it's somewhere out there on the internet. I bet you somewhere in the ether. I bet you it's findable. We've got intrepid people out there who know more about this station than we do, and we work here.
Very true, Davey.
So you can't rule out the possibility that it'll be located. I hope it does. Because it was apropos again, first time in a while on Friday. In fact, what was the topic? The topic was the
track and field.
The runner.
Yep.
It was a relay, right?
Yep.
Getting bumped off the track, doing an SGA flop, and yet it was the other runner who ends up and team that gets punished. Correct, Rosemont. Yeah. A lot of discussion on that. So there's another Edina story. Remind me to get to a little bit later. I don't want to divert too much too early here on a very special edition, as I said, of the program. We'll give you uglyduck.com guest results for the day in just a minute as well. Here's the question on the table. And this will be, I think, probably considered rich coming from me, but I'm going to ask it nevertheless. Is there such a thing as too much polydana? And by that I mean there's something in the water right now that is urging, almost seemingly demanding, that media members who are in the business of analyzing a game or a series or a team no longer feel comfortable merely assessing a player, a team, and a series, and calling said player, team, series outstanding, entertaining, competitive, special. The new bit is, and it's already happened again after Game 3 of the Stanley Cup Finals, which was, of course, you can't make up the way that game played out, obviously, 4-goal lead blown, but then Vegas lives to tell about it in overtime number 2, right? Now it's the best start to a Stanley Cup Finals ever. Never been a better one. Not even close. And I'm thinking to myself, maybe that's true for unusual, I guess, developments and sequences. But why does it always have to be the best ever? Why can't it be really good entertainment, really good hockey, if that's what you believe, really good basketball, if that's what you believe, and a player who has a chance to be one of the best of all time? That's no longer good enough for people. And what I'm trying to figure out is whether this is analyst-driven or they feel like that's what's expected of them. Is it self-imposed hysteria that can't stop with, this is wonderful action. This is a hell of this is one of the best. I guess maybe it's not as dramatic if you say, this is one of the best series at the start that I've ever seen. That's less dramatic than going all the way and saying, never been a better series ever. We've talked about this with Wemby. It's not enough to say he's obviously unique in his set of skills, unprecedented. It's not enough to say he's got a chance to rewrite everything. It's not enough to say we've probably never seen this blend of size and skill. It's got to be, well, you're an idiot if you don't think, A, he's already the best player in basketball. You're an idiot. I've heard that on national radio just from the last, an idiot. Or you're not willing to say he's the best player of all time. Stop, the old full stop, period, the whole bit. What is it that drives us? Why isn't, because I'm not asking you to rip. I'm not even asking you to be bored by excellence, by a team, in a series, by a player. But what drives us now that it's almost like we're not pleased, we're not satisfied enough internally if we don't go far more dramatic? Is it I guess what I'm asking, is sports becoming as performative as politics? Sports reporting, maybe not sports reporting so much as sports analysis, but even reporting, which is greatest ever. I don't know. I got to believe there's great hockey minds out there. And by the way, little Danny Barreiro still hasn't recovered from the Blackhawks losing to the Montreal Canadiens 71 in gut-wrenching fashion. Hell of a series, by the way. But I got to believe there's hockey people who are going to tell us, oh, wait a minute, you're forgetting about this, and this. And I understand not everybody's 80, not everybody's 70, not everybody's 60, but I'm trying to figure out why excellent isn't good enough for us right now. Do you have an answer? Do you have a theory on it?
I would say I would put social media in there where everything has to be quantified. Everything has to be quantified quickly. Everything has to be judged against
assessed
what came before
immediately.
It.
Yeah.
And if you don't say this was the greatest ever, then people are going to receive that as they would just any other tweet, any other comment. It's just, which, by the way, it might be true. Just go, this is a great series. It might just kind of pass like through water under the bridge.
Right.
That's what I think. The NFLization of life, where every day, every game in the NFL feels like it's an entire season. That's crept into other sports probably. Johnny's talked about that a lot. I just think everything is magnified all the time, and to cut through it, you have to have a big reaction or a big take or a big opinion on something. Otherwise, it just kind of sits there.
I think that's a lot of it, but I also think an element of this is, I hate to say it, it's going to sound like a old man Cloud's assertion, but I'm going to say it anyway because I believe it. I believe there is less and less patience and interest in the past for too many people. That if they don't have a specific lasting memory, that it either didn't happen or it just doesn't matter. And I just think that's a little bit short-sighted. That doesn't mean I can demand that if you're 40 years old, you can remember a Stanley Cup final from 50 years ago, obviously. But this stuff's been going on a long time. And I think there used to be more of an interest in what happened in the past in these various sports. Almost as it just enriches the experience. We are where we are now, but here's how we got here. Here's where we came from. And so it's the old deal of, nope, it's right now. Everything's right now and it happened now. This is bigger. This feels bigger. And, of course, part of the reason it feels bigger is that everything is there's more dispatches. There's more reports. It's stuff that's big in sports. I don't know that it's necessarily reported better than it was 25 years ago. In a lot of cases, probably not as good, but it's everywhere. So if it's an unusually memorable game, it's going to be available millions of places on the internet in almost no time. And I think it that kind of encourages the notion that, the way they're talking about this is big. And it could be big. But I think we should be okay with damn good. One of the best. Without having to go, because I honestly think sometimes we lie to ourselves And we end up making it more than it is because we're just so eager to do that, and it's so important to perform. Who's the new point guard for the Minnesota Lynx?
Olivia
Miles.
Yep.
I, again, Saturday, had zero intention, with other things to do, to watch Lynx basketball on TV. Zero. Not anything because I have anything against the Lynx. I wasn't going to watch anything. I wouldn't leave the Barca until she got removed late in a laugher. That's how much she's already captured my imagination. I know the imagination of many. That should be enough. But it doesn't already have to be. She might be the best of all time. Can we not wait a minute? Is it not enough to say, man, she's got some just fairly historic tools? The great combination of speed, voltage, and vision. I'll tell you, if you want to go back, the first few times I saw Lindsay Whalen, and not all the games were on then when she's playing at the University of Maryland, when she emerged.
You had to go.
You had to go. And that's how it feels with this woman. That should be enough, because that's not like downplaying it or almost saying, oh, calm down. It's saying this looks intriguing and fascinating and is eye-catching. I don't think we have to say yet she's going to be the best point guard of all time.
Put her on the Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, let's put her on the Mount Rushmore already, I'm afraid. All right, are we doing bonus bucks today?
At 5:10.
5:10 again,
Yep.
Okay. Even better. Let's get our first pause in now. Outstanding guest lineup. We'll give you details in just a minute. And we've got done-as to get to today. We've got a new form of bullying, and we've got, well, actually, let's come back with the done-as. At least get it in early and maybe amplify on it a little bit later. Stay tuned.
You're listening to
It's the media's urgent fight for getting our screen time. That's Jim in St. Paul. With all the options we have today for viewing entertainment, media feels like they have to build. Let me scroll down here. Build up everything to get us to watch. 612 guy or gal writes, Olivia Miles is the truth. 701 guy writes, Olivia Miles, wait a little bit? Like you guys did with Caitlin Clark, even at Iowa? Well, 701 guy, let me make it as clear as possible. If maybe you didn't listen closely enough to the first segment. I'm not saying wait a bit on Olivia Miles being the truth. I'm not. What I'm saying is I don't think it's necessary to proclaim her the greatest point guard of all time. There was nothing in the opening segment that was anything but oozing with excitement over what Miles represents. And Caitlin Clark's a bad example, 701 guy, because at some point with the Caitlin Clark phenomenon, it almost became irrelevant how good she was. It was what she was triggering, right? That's what had to be. In that case, reporters not covering that wouldn't have been doing their job, because it wasn't necessarily, I think, media generated. It was fan generated. And
that was a slow build.
And it was, you're right.
Because it was a good Iowa story to a good regional story. I mean, I watched it in real time, just how the crowds grew.
And by the way, she's struggling right now.
Big time.
We'll get to that later in the week.
And by her junior year, when all of a sudden it's at a fever pitch, and they went to the national championship game 2 years in a row, or the Final Four 2 years in a row at least.
Oh, they did?
They sure did.
Oh, that matter?
I think it does.
Another one of those Caitlin Clark haters, man. They're out. Every time somebody says, you guys are making this stuff up, I said, no, I'm not. They're out there.
This is the end, my only friend, the end.
I am utterly confused regarding one story that I'm sure is close to Guardsy's heart, because it involves college football.
Oh, yeah.
Brendan Sorsby, now the Texas Tech quarterback, just was granted a temporary injunction to play for the Red Raiders this fall. Why is that stunning? He has admitted fully that he made at least 40 bets on Indiana football when he was there. This was on the Indiana roster in 2022. He also wagered on men's basketball games at Indiana and Cincinnati when he was enrolled at those schools. The rules are in place. The most updated NCAA rules are you can be done, certainly at least for a year, if you are found that you have bet on your team, regardless of whether you played in the game. But a judge, in an astonishing ruling to me, and maybe it's got good legal backing, but let's say it does. The NCAA's done. It's over. If whatever is left of that entity cannot attempt to make a strong statement on the line that supposedly could not be crossed, betting on your own team, whether you played in it or not, you got nothing. And there's no protection left. Whatever guardrails, and we may have been kidding ourselves about the guardrails that were in place, given the degree to which, college and pros have decided to take the money when it comes to betting, right? That at this point, if this stands, and obviously the NCAA has already said it's going to appeal it, you got nothing. I mean, I'm stunned with, what else? The comeback was, you heard the defense that apparently worked with the judge. The defense was mental health issue. To which I would say that might well be true. But we have to protect the integrity as much as we can at this point, with now the relationships between betting and pro and college sports. We have to protect the integrity of our games, or our business model dies. The judge, apparently, now maybe it wasn't very well argued by those representing the NCAA. I have no idea. As I said, there will be an appeal. But I was gobsmacked by this one because I don't know where, as I said, whatever legislative body matters now, NCAA, or maybe it's going to be Congress.
Right.
Whoever is going to be in charge of this stuff, if you can't deem a player ineligible for what he did, it's over. Dogs and cats living together, right, at that point. All bets would be off, no pun intended. Or all bets would be on, I guess, right?
Yeah. The argument, he deserved a temporary restraining order because he had been diagnosed with a gambling addiction.
Yeah.
Had gone through a 35-day inpatient rehab, and by banning him from playing this fall, the NCAA would not be supporting his mental health and thus potentially negatively impacting his recovery.
Sorry, kid. I would root for you if this is that mental health issue that's being suggested, if that's real, or that or could that just be like I said, a legal ploy, strategy, whatever. Everybody would root for him, correct? But you can't play. You cross the line because it becomes way too easy, does it not? Could this defense? Who's the former NBA player who just got nailed? Name will come to me in a minute. But we've had. I mean, is this going to be the new defense? Now, this just might be one goofball judge in, I think it's Texas, who, for whatever reason came up with this ruling, and maybe it will be overturned.
Terry Rozier.
But Rozier is the one,
Mm-hmm.
So just because can Terry say, I got a sickness? I don't blame me. I know it was wrong, but you can't. You're not going to get in my way. It's all over the country. There's a lot of discussion about it because of the door that it opens.
Yes.
Different than this door has never been opened quite this way. And I think it was a big shot. It's Kessler, I think, was not Pat. Jeffrey Kessler, who's a brilliant legal mind. He represented the QB.
Yes.
And I don't doubt did a marvelous job. And maybe, again, legally on the basis of how the judge was listening to this case, maybe that's the correct ruling. Let's again say it's correct. Then we're in a heap of trouble on the college level when it comes to attempting to send any kind of a message of, I guess you could say, fear or concern of ramifications if you are a player and decide that you are going to indeed bet. Now, the conspiracy theory is, and it shows you how things have changed at Indiana University. The conspiracy theory is, okay, yeah, you waited, the NCAA I'm talking about, you waited to punish him. Now, why didn't you punish Indiana? Now, he didn't play, I don't believe, that year in 2022 for Indiana, but it was like, okay, the big school gets off easy. Think about that. Indiana football is now considered like one of the haves.
We got to have them. We can't have them have sanctions.
Exactly it.
I don't even know what would make sense to try to punish them.
Yeah.
Because they didn't, presumably they didn't know.
Yeah, I don't know what you do with that.
I don't think they have much liability.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Anyway.
Yeah, this is a shocker, a stunner. Every podcast I listened to the last 6 months on this thing was, this guy's toast. How can you possibly let him play? If the judge falls for this ruling, what are they thinking?
Yeah.
And there it is. I was stunned to read this today.
Mental health is legit.
Of course.
And I would respect it and say, God bless you. Good luck working on that and getting better on that. But this isn't just about you. This is about a larger issue. We have rules in place that govern this exact activity. If you violate the rules, whatever the reason you do it, we have to follow through with the punishment. And on the basis of this ruling, that's dead, at least for the moment. Let's come back and chat. Don't forget, we've got Johnny Athletic at 5:30. And when we return, how about a little bit of less maybe on the NBA Finals game number, 3 tonight in New York? How about a little bit more on Garden basketball? Trent Tucker, kind enough to join us. That is coming up next. He'll tell us what the atmosphere has been like over the years in the Garden, why he does buy the notion that there is no place quite like it. We'll discuss that and who knows what else with Double T next.
This is Bumper to Bumper with Dan Barreiro on the
All right, we are back. As I mentioned, Johnny Athletic is going to join us at 5:30 today. Double T is joining us now, Trent Tucker, via the Connecticut Water Systems Hotline. Before we say hi to Trent, Texter, who was listening to our last done as item regarding the Texas Tech quarterback Sorsby winning that temporary injunction that will, at least for now, allow him to play, despite the fact that he's admitted that he bet dozens of times on Indiana football when he was there. As a mental health professional, writes 218 guy, I can tell you that consequences of bad behavior are imperative to treatment and recovery. Tend to agree. So we'll see where that story goes. Let's say hi, as I said, to Trent Tucker, of course, co-host In the Zone, joins us periodically as well. And as we welcome you back to the show, yesterday we had in for the entire 2-hour sermons program Sam Mitchell, who was in town, Double T, for the big uniform unveiling, Timberwolves uniform unveiling. And I picked him up downtown, brought him here. He never stopped talking the entire ride. Never stopped talking once we cracked the mics. Then I took him back to his hotel. He never stopped talking then. But what's interesting is I have great respect for his basketball acumen. I have great respect for yours. And you guys are on different sides on one issue. And that's what to do with Wemby going forward. I think you believe you want to see him down low more. Sam believes he actually needs to be freed and played as if he's a forward, not a center, and move him around to glide because he's not convinced that he really, at this point in his career, can hold up playing down low. So an interesting disagreement between two great basketball minds, it appears.
Well, yeah. I mean, everyone is, because he's such a unique player, and it's easy to say, you can use him here and use him there, and he can be valuable in both spots. I just think that as you look at San Antonio's team, and when he's down low, all of a sudden now he creates easier opportunities for his teammates. He's going to force the Knicks to have to double team from a different standpoint. And if he's out on the perimeter, and if I'm Mike Brown, I would say, take all the 28-foot jump shots you want. Try to beat guys off the dribble as much as you want, because I believe that plays right into the Knicks' hands. Now, I'm not saying that San Antonio still can't win by playing that way, but I think the most effective way for San Antonio to have a chance to get back into this series, Wembanyama is going to have to dominate the paint.
Well, one of the interesting things that we talked about with Sam was he doesn't really have, as skilled as he already is and as dominant as he has been, he doesn't really have what you'd classify as a pet move yet, right? He doesn't have a hook. He doesn't have like a baseline turnaround, posting up. Now, I think you got to incorporate that because at some point you do have to use that height inside to his advantage, to the team's advantage, and certainly to his advantage as well. But that's one of the interesting things about him. As dominant as he's appeared at times, what's his signature shot? It's probably the jump shot or the alley-oop. It's not like it looks so far that he's developed any, signature baseline moves.
Well, Dan, I think he's the guy that never should shoot 4 for 15.
Yeah, I got you.
It's because, how centers are played today and how they defend, you don't have a collection of guys like the Dikembe Mutombo and Alonzo Mourning and Patrick Ewings and the David Robinsons and the Hakeem Olajuwon. So when he goes down low, he's not going to face a ton of resistance. And there's no way that he should shoot 4 for 15. I mean, he should shoot close to 65 to 7% every single night. It's just because he, to me, I think is the most unguardable guy in the game. But in San Antonio, you can move him around. He can take some three-point shots here. He can stay on the perimeter every once in a while. But I know when San Antonio made their run with Tim Duncan, and they had a European style of offense between Parker and Ginobili and Boris Diaw. When it got down to winning time, that ball went inside to Tim Duncan. Mm-hmm. And I think if San Antonio can find a way back into this series, I think Wembanyama has to be down low more than not.
The first memory you have of playing at Madison Square Garden?
Opening night, 1982, first home game was against Dr. J and the Philadelphia 76ers.
That's not a bad start.
The place is sold out. And so as we get into the jump ball circle, and I look around the jump ball circle, I see Moses Malone, and then I look to my left, and there's Dr. J. And I said, now this is big boys basketball for real. So the opening tap, I think Bill Cartwright knocked the ball out, and the ball was going out of bounds. And Dr. J took 2 steps and reached out and grabbed the ball before it went out of bounds. One hand, and took 1 step and dunked the basketball. I would say, now, I didn't see that in the Big Ten last year.
At the barn, you didn't quite see that kind of reach.
I didn't see that at Purdue. I didn't see that at Indiana.
Yep.
And the first thing I thought, I was like, wow. I said, can I really play basketball up at this level? I had never seen nothing like that in my life. And, to have, at that time, the marquee guy in the game and Dr. J on the biggest stage in New York City, I was like, wow. I said, only if my father could see me now, right?
Yeah. That's a really good memory. When was the first memory that you have where it occurred to you, not so much about the basketball, but the atmosphere in that building, what it was capable of being? When did that first dawn on you? When did you first see that? Is there a similar memory there?
My second year in the league, we get to the Eastern Conference semifinals against, the Boston Celtics with Larry Bird and Kevin McHale and Robert Parrish and Dennis Johnson. That great team from Boston, and we get home for Game 3 after being down 2-0. And the hated Celtics come to town. We win Game 3. I had never ever heard a crowd that loud. I thought my heart was going to jump out of my chest. And I knew right then that this is what, New York City basketball was all about.
Why is it, do you believe, obviously there's great history there. There's no question about that. There have been some great players and great programs who've been, from there, college pros. I I tell you, in 69, I should say, in 73. Yeah, 69, the Knicks won it. What were the 2 years they won it? 70 and 73. So I'm 15. Yeah. I'm 15 in 1970. And we'd lived in Tennessee for 3 years, then we'd moved back to the Chicago area. And I can tell you, by then I was already a big-time Bulls fan, right, and Blackhawks fan. But the Knicks teams that won it in 70, 73, obviously it was Clyde Frazier then in 70. Then they added Earl Monroe. Right. One of the most amazing backcourts in history in 73, Earl the Pearl. What I remember is, even though I wasn't rooting for those teams, because I didn't follow them growing up, I still found it easy to enjoy the hell out of them because, as you say, the crowds were electric there. You could just tell. And the basketball was great. The ball moved. Unselfish. Yes. Talent. It sort of did feel like it was the perfect place for them for great basketball to be played, because you could certainly tell that the fans seemed to embrace it very easily.
It was Broadway. It was showtime. And many people question the move that the Knicks did to bring up Earl Monroe, and they didn't know if he and Walt Clyde Frazier could coexist.
Yep.
But Earl was a one-on-one guy in Baltimore, but he was a perfect fit and a perfect running mate for Clyde Frazier. And as you mentioned, Dan, they played great team basketball. Red Holtzman, was an architect in making sure the ball had to move from strong side to weak side. It was all about ball movement and player movement, and the guys bought into it. And when you talk about all-time great performances in a big moment in a big game, Game 7, Willis comes out and makes 2 shots, and he couldn't play the rest of the game. And for Clyde Frazier to go 36 and 19, many people don't talk about how great of a basketball player that he was.
That's why when people, we were talking about this at the start of the show, everybody's got to be the best ever now. And so now the new best ever discussion with the Knicks is, if Brunson wins a title, is he the best Knick ever? And fine, I get it to have the discussion, but immediately people are it's too easy to forget just because it goes back far enough. People like the players you're naming. Walt Frazier was absurdly great basketball player. I don't have to tell you that. And look, Brunson's great, but it's okay to be really, really good, maybe one of the all-time greatest. You don't always have to be the greatest,
Right. And when you look at, some of these historic records that are being broken now.
Yes.
Look at the guys who held those records for how long they held them. And with the game and how it's played today, high offense, three-point shooting, the game is much faster. And it has taken 30, 40, and 50 years, for some of these records to be broken. And a lot of young players today and young people today would never know how good Elgin Baylor was.
True.
And, when you talk about somebody that was artistic and how he played the game and creativity that he brought to the game on a nightly basis, some of the things that you're seeing guys do today, he was doing it back 40 and 50 years ago. But Walt Frazier, to me, was, he was the perfect guard.
He was. He really was.
He was 6'4". He could handle the ball. He could play defense. He could beat you in a one-on-one type situation. He was a great team player. And the two guys that I wanted to be like when I was playing basketball as a kid was Walt Frazier and Sam Jones from the Boston Celtics.
Both great, outstanding names, that's for sure. When we're talking about the atmosphere in the Garden and the fans, my impression, obviously don't travel there as much as I used to when I was covering a lot of stuff, is that they run the gamut. What makes Knicks fans, New York fans, interesting to me is I think they can literally be the most loving fans out there, and they also can be the most merciless and demanding. Is that fair? Do you agree with that?
No doubt about it. You can be great and bad on one play. Everybody right now is loving this basketball team in New York City. I've been on some talk shows in New York, over the weekend, and just listening to some of my close friends who still live in the Big Apple, and everybody is so excited about this team. You let them drop game number 3, and all of a sudden tomorrow, the talk shows are totally different. The conversation is different. Now this team is not as good as we thought they were. So, you have to take New York City for what it is, and understand that, you are never as great as you think you are, and also you're never as bad as someone else thinks you is.
Trent, the half the fans, maybe 65% of the fans, wanted Cat cut or traded several times during the season. They were done with him. The tabloids mocked him and ridiculed him. He was constantly under siege. Now they want to give him a lifetime contract and a statue.
Oh, no doubt about it. I mean, it's New York City is the greatest opportunity for you to be, revered and a hero in that market forever. But also, you can be on the other end as well. With one bad play, one mistake here or there in a crucial moment, and the fans 40, 50, 60 years from now would never forget that. But you make a big shot, and you're a guy that they didn't like for a long time, but you make a big play in a big moment, and all of a sudden you're a hero forever. If
you're known while you were playing there, could you go out? I mean, how were fans there? Was it, they're cool with leaving athletes alone if they see them in the street, going to a restaurant, tavern, whatever the case may be, or was it constant mobs, and you have to sort of like work, downtime? There are times where you're not as easy to find.
At this time of the year, if you are a playoff contending team, any sport in New York City, that's when the attention is the greatest. It's a long season during the regular season. You have cold nights where you can slip in and slip out. When the weather is nice and people are on the street and more attention now is being paid to the team at playoff time, that's when the attention is the greatest, and it's hard to kind of slip in and slip out. So you have to pick your spots when you want to go out and be a part of the public.
I want to ask you a Karl Anthony Towns basketball question too. Obviously, you know him. You've watched him here a long time. You're watching him now in New York. And there's certainly been stretches of his career in which he has scored more consistently, scored more points, big-time score, 30, 40, 50, whatever the case may be. But I'm wondering if you've ever seen this version of Cat, who I think more than anything else that I see now is concerned, it seems, only with making winning plays. He doesn't give a damn if it's 30 or if it's 18 points and 10 assists, whatever. To me, influencing winning seems to be more of what he's about than I ever remember him being here on a consistent basis. What do you see?
But when you're the number one draft pick, everyone is expecting you to carry the team. And when you're young, your mindset is totally different. I think, when the Wolves got, to one of their two first Western Conference finals, and he had some success defending Kevin Durant and Nikola Jokic, I think that changed the way he viewed basketball. Mm-hmm. Now he goes to New York. They make the Eastern Conference Finals as well in his first year there. And coming into this year, I think it seems like Mike Brown had a conversation with him, especially as they got ready for the playoffs, and realized that, we can use you in a different way. You can impact the game by doing X, Y, and Z. You can be very good on both ends of the floor. You may not be the leading scorer, but you're so important with the game that you bring to the table every single day. And that's going to give us a chance, to win a championship at some point in time. And his mindset began to flip. I don't have to be the best player. I don't have to score 35 points now. I just have to be a guy that can impact the game in different ways. And I think he's adopted that mindset very well.
The Knicks have won 13 straight playoff games. I think the only two games they lost was each by 1 point. If they sweep, if they, pull this off and win the next two, they will finish, obviously, even I can do this math, with 15 consecutive victories to wrap things up. It would have to be one of the great playoff runs, would it not?
I agree with you. No doubt about it. And what this team has been able to do after being down 2-1 to the Atlanta Hawks, and like you mentioned, they were ready to run Karl Anthony Towns and the rest of the Knicks, out of New York City, and they haven't lost since. And I think that's what Mike Brown realized that, hey, I have to use Karl Anthony Towns in a different way.
Absolutely.
Because here's a guy that has a ton of talent. He can bring multiple things to the table. So it's up to me now to put him in a better position to be more successful and not just rely on Jalen Brunson to carry us offensively every single night.
Did we blow it here not fully recognizing, for example, his passing skill? I mean, it wasn't like they didn't run any offense through him, but they didn't run as much offense through him as what the Knicks are doing now, at least until, fourth quarter winning time. They're going to still isolate Jalen. Did we screw up not recognizing this in him, or was he not quite ready for it, or what do you think?
I think, every coach has a different philosophy on how they want to play.
Yeah.
And we were playing pretty much through Anthony Edwards.
Right.
And he was the guy that was carrying us offensively. And there was always a big question mark around Karl Anthony Towns. Could he perform at playoff time?
Mm-hmm.
The early part before Anthony Edwards, came onto the scene, Karl Anthony Towns could not get it done at playoff time. So he was always the second, sometimes maybe the third fiddle with inside of the Wolves offense. But now he goes to New York. And I think the San Antonio Spurs exposed Oklahoma City and the Wolves. And what I mean by that, lack of point guard play, and also presence on the inside offensively. And what the Knicks have shown, they have both of those things covered. They have a point guard in Jalen Brunson, and they have a guy in Karl Anthony Towns, who can score from the outside. He can take the ball inside on the drive. He can play with his back to the basket. So he's forcing San Antonio, I believe, to look at how they do things differently on the defensive end, because now Wemby just can't stand back there and play free safety.
Yeah, I think that's right on all counts. Double T, are you ready to trade Julius Randle and Rudy Gobert? There's no guarantee that either is going to happen, but there are lots of murmurings that the Wolves might be exploring both. Is that a bridge too far? Or do you say, well, depending on what you get back, maybe it is time to turn the page on Rudy, see what the kid behind him who played so little last year might have? What do you think?
I think it's time for the Wolves to realize that they need a point guard for sure. And that, Rudy has served his purpose. The trade that they made a few years ago to bring in what they thought at that time was the best defensive player to play that position. He has done very well in that role. But at some point in time, those players began to expire. Mike Conley Jr., you can't ask him to play 38 minutes anymore because he's a little bit longer in the tooth now. And I think the same thing can go along with Rudy Gobert. So I think those two positions right there where the Wolves need to take a strong look at as they go into next season to make some improvements in those 2 points if they want to stay in this window in the Western Conference. So if you're looking to move someone like a Julius Randle or Rudy Gobert, I think you hit the nail on the head. You said, what will we get in return? And what we get in return is that what we need to keep this team where it is today and make it better.
Would you take a shot on Kyrie Irving if he's gettable?
Yeah. If he passed all the tests of being healthy, for sure I would take a run at him.
Yeah, because he is exactly what you described. He can run the show, and it can also score. The question is health there and age a little bit and what you have to give up for certain. You're not just go ahead. You're going to say?
I was going to say, you look at Anthony Edwards. I think he's a year, maybe 5 or 6 now, almost at year 7. When you talk about supreme talent, and you compare his talent to a late Kobe Bryant, and sometimes you can see some physical gifts and glimpses of Michael Jordan. But when those guys began to take off and really become masters of the game, Phil Jackson took both of those guys off the ball.
Exactly right.
And he moved Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant, closer to the basket, where they could operate, late in the shot clock, and they could play off 1 or 2 bounces. He was no longer asking them to play from 28 feet. And I think the same thing now has to happen for Anthony Edwards for him to be more effective for the Wolves for the next 4 or 5 years.
Such an important point. I couldn't agree more. And that's part of what we were talking about with Sam Mitchell yesterday, because we were talking about how, players are often the worst judges on who should coach them, because by all accounts, Michael wanted Doug Collins to stay.
Oh, for sure.
And part of it was, and so Phil comes in and does what? Like you said, he says, no. What I'm going to do is going to end up making you even better, even more legendary. And it was, again, it was not like Michael wasn't going to get the ball, right? But it did have him off the ball a decent amount where it's going to come back to him, right? But it's such an important point. And that's exactly what Jackson proved with both of those legends.
And it was very hard because, I asked Phil, when I first got to Chicago, I said, what was the toughest thing you had to do with MJ? He said, for one, was to get him to trust you as a teammate. And I said, okay, elaborate. He said, he's not selfish. He just believes that the way that he has been playing is the best way for him to win.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was up to me, along with Tex Winters and the rest of the coaching staff, to convince him that he had to see the game differently so that he could make his teammates more involved. And that was going to make him a better player. Not only give him a chance to still be the best player, but now become a great winner as well. And he said, it's hard to convince someone who is that good and that talented that they need to do something different and see the game played in a different way. And he said, and great for all of you and great for me, he was willing to buy in.
News breaking yesterday, I'm sure you've heard, sad news regarding Stacey King, a former Bull who went on to have, became a legendary basketball analyst on Bulls games. How well did you know Stacey? What are your thoughts there? It's such a shocking story.
A very shocking story. B.J. Armstrong called me yesterday and gave me the news. In my time in Chicago, Stacey and I were very close. We became very good friends, and I was kind of the leader of the young guys.
Mm-hmm.
When they were having tough days, and Phil would always tell me that it is your job now to go and get them ready to play. So along with him and some of the other young guys, we developed a very good relationship. So to me, it was a very sad story to hear of his passing yesterday. And also, I spoke to Patrick Ewing today as well, and he gave me some more sad news. His sister passed away yesterday. So I said it was a double whammy for me yesterday. Having one close friend pass away, and then I have another close friend to lose his sister as well.
That's rough, for sure. Double T, thanks as always for the contributions, my friend. Good to chat with you. We'll be in touch as always.
Anytime, Dan.
Thank you, sir. That is Trent Tucker, longtime contributor to this program, a name that probably at this point needs very little introduction here in the Twin Cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul. If we weren't so close to the end of the clock, I was going to ask Double T, because he's a hockey guy now too, made that clear. What is the basketball equivalent of blowing a 4-goal lead? How many points? In the fourth quarter.
Ooh, good one.
Fourth quarter basketball, right? Because there's third period, 4-goal lead. It was
like 13 minutes. I mean, it was
crazy.
Tighter than that. Yeah.
So that's the question. It can't be 20 points. It's got to be more than 20.
No, I was going to say
25 or 30.
Is it like the 22 that the Cavs?
That's the question. Is that equivalent to that?
The Knicks?
The 4-goal thing feels bigger to me, but
yes,
part of the reason it felt smaller in a way because we got 3 goals in an instant, right?
Yes,
which is crazy. So maybe the great hockey minds or basketball minds can answer that question.
You are listening.